You ever have a day where one wrong knock on the wrong door flips everything upside down? 3 words, get out of the truck, and my whole life narrowed down to the sound of gravel underboots, like it was auditioning for a movie I never wanted to star in. I wasn't shaking then, not at first. I was too busy trying to figure out who'd put a gun between me and my front porch. My name is Eli Mercer. For 20 years, Sparrow Ridge was a place you could lose your watch and find your peace. 40 acres of cedar and pasture, an old barn that remembers my grandfather's laughter, and a porch that faces the way the sun goes to sleep. My son Ben came back from the service last winter, and the place finally felt whole again. We built a life out here the way some people grow apple trees, slow, stubborn, and certain. Across the little county road a year ago, they built Willow Creek Estates. New houses, white fences, HOA signs polished so clean they practically winked at you. At first it was background noise, construction trucks, a couple of loud weekends, but then the notices started. Violation of aesthetic code. Non-compliance with decorative stone guidelines. The board was small, its president, Mary Ann Pike, sharp as a thorn, and they liked rules the way some folks like whiskey, neat and frequent. The first time it felt personal was a flyer tucked under the gate. Trim your hedges to community standards. I laughed and folded it into my pocket. The second time, a warning taped to my barn about unapproved structures. That time Ben took the paper and balled it up and said, "They think they can scare us." He wasn't mad so much as amused, like the last guy in a bar who hears a clown honking and expects nothing more than a laugh. We were wrong to be casual. Then the man with the badge showed up. Roy Hargrove drove an old Tahoe with rust climbing up its sides, and he wore a vest that said HOA enforcement like it was enough. He had a laugh that tried to be friendly and a voice that tried harder. The first month, he took pictures of our fence and left a note about property line clarification. The second month, he followed Ben at dusk to the feed shed and wrote down license plates like they were trophies. I went out once, asked him to stop hanging around my property, and he smiled in a way that suggested he would keep doing just that. As the weeks folded into each other, small things started to look like a pattern. A bolt cut from the barn door left on our step, no explanation. A note that our mailbox was not in keeping with the community profile. A neighbor I hardly knew came by to tell me Mary Ann said I didn't belong because Ben was under 50 and the subdivision wanted retirees. It was petty, and petty wears shoes that become heavy. Worry sneaks in. You check locks, walk the fence slower, answer the phone with suspicion. But what changed everything was one October evening when Roy came back, and this time he had something pinned under his vest that wasn't a name tag. He stepped out like someone who knew the lines, authority folded into his jacket. Ben was on the porch, the sky a bruise. Roy's voice was a tired rope when he said, "Step out of the truck now." I could have told him he was on private property, could have told him to leave, but he didn't answer to ordinary words anymore. He answered to badge and menace. In a flash, a gun was out, the dog barked, and Roy said, "I can make you leave." Ben, a veteran, stepped forward and did what he'd been trained to: fast, precise, and clean. He knocked the arm, disarmed Roy with a move that looked choreographed. The gun slid across the gravel and stopped at my foot. Neighbors filmed it, and the sheriff came with a notebook. Roy's vest hid a fake badge and forged letters that began to unravel his story. A burner phone, a stack of complaints written by hand to look official, things that should have stayed private, were suddenly evidence on a table. The little recordings from dash cams and phones mattered more than anyone expected, because once a moment is on tape, it resists being rewritten. It takes witnesses and recordings to build truth. The sheriff found records linking the board to Roy's runs and texts from Marion saying, "Make the Mercers uncomfortable." People who used to say, "Not my business," began turning in photographs and messages. What had felt like petty harassment stood up like a house when you saw the scaffolding behind it: texts, emails, and a pattern of coordinated pressure. We sued. The suit wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure someone who pointed a gun over a fence couldn't hide behind a title. The county put the HOA under review and froze some of their enforcement powers while auditors looked at their bylaws and bank statements. Mary Ann resigned from the board in the middle of a town meeting, called me arrogant as she left, which made me laugh because arrogance felt small next to what we'd been through. The courtroom was slow and precise. Witnesses told the piece's neighbors who saw Roy test a taser, people who got threatening letters, those who filmed the Tahoe idling outside our gate. The judge found impersonation, brandishing, harassment. It wasn't a movie ending, but it was official. Roy received time and fines. The board faced subpoenas and scrutiny. Legal victories don't erase fear, but they do rearrange the playing field so intimidation isn't the rule. The hearing opened the books. Mary Ann's name wasn't on the minutes anymore. Roy served a sentence. We settled, and part of the settlement funded a community dispute fund so others wouldn't face this alone. That fund felt like a promise that neighbors wouldn't be left to handle the heavy things alone. After the legal storm came the quiet cleanup. Ben fixed the barn door. I painted the mailbox, but left it whether truth doesn't need to be polished. Neighbors brought casseroles, some apologies sincere, others awkward as porch chairs. The HOA dissolved under scrutiny and reformed with new oversight, now led by people who actually lived in the dirt and knew the value of a raised eyebrow over a raised hand. I won't pretend it's all fixed. Some nights Ben and I sit, and the echo of Roy's voice lingers. Accountability felt good, but there was an ache. A pistol at your home rearranges you, distrust creeps in, simple walks feel different. The ranch is the same in many ways, but altered in the small ways that matter. We lock up the feed at night. We talk more. We pay attention to the people who come down our road. The end, if we're calling it, that came quietly. Ben and I watched a new family move into a house across the road. A child's bicycle, bright and ordinary, leaned on a porch post. For a moment, I felt hopeful and warned at once. Rules can be used as weapons, and small power can swell into ugly things. Who will be brave enough to stop it next time? Tell me what you think. Was justice served? Have you faced a neighbor who crossed a line that made you question your own home? Drop a comment and tell the truth, argue, defend, or call me naive. I'm ready for it. If this story landed, share it with someone who believes community is about kindness and accountability, not control. For tonight, the porch light's on, the dog is asleep, and we're keeping our eyes open.